So, for those of you that don't know Graziano, so he's a managing partner at Sofinova, it's a French venture capital firm. So he's basically in charge of deciding which biotech companies is worth investing in. And well, you are also the co-founder of Biotechnology, so you're also involved with the Italian biotech ecosystem. And we've already talked a bit about biotech in Italy with Ricardo, but I also wanted to see your point of view, like the point of view of an investor, because I guess you have experience investing in a lot of different European countries. So I'm interested in seeing how Italy compares to other countries in Europe.
Sure. Maybe I start to say 2 words about who Sofinova is, because I assume that not everybody knows Sofinova in the room. So we are a French venture capital firm that is focused on life sciences. And for us, life sciences is healthcare and industrial biotech. The big part of our investments is in healthcare, where we invest both in biopharmaceuticals, which includes all the different technologies that we've been discussing here with Ricardo, but also in medical devices. And the common feature of these investments that we make is the medical need. So we believe that if you focus on a real medical need and you solve it, you will generate returns. And yes, you will have to talk about pricing at a certain point, but you will generate superior returns for your investors. And that's why, for example, we don't focus on diagnostics, we don't focus on services, we don't focus on manufacturing. We only do medical need-driven therapies that can be drugs or can be medical devices. And then on the other side of the life sciences, we do industrial biotech, which for us is really substituting plastic and plastic derivatives and petrol derivatives with biosourced and bioproduced products. And we do that in a smaller part of the company. Today we manage about 1.8 billion. About 150 million are dedicated to industrial biotech. The lion's share is dedicated to healthcare. So when it comes to investing at Sofinova, we are comfortably a leading investor everywhere in the continent. We also invest in the States. And so we know many countries in which we work. The way we look at today at Europe is also in biotech is a little bit at 2 speeds. You have a part of Europe that has a flourishing ecosystem in biotech, where you have, today in Europe, you have about 2,000 biotechs. You have almost 400 public biotechs, and you have about 500 or 600 late-stage biotechs, which we never had in the last, this is all, when I started being an investor at Sofinova, it was more than 15 years ago, unfortunately. We didn't have all of that ecosystem. Today we have it. And so last week, we announced a new fund, which is a late-stage crossover fund, which is broadening our horizons. We are normally recognized for our company creation activities. We have, in the recent history, created about 100 companies in 13 different countries from scratch, from zero. Some of these have become actillion, some of these have been sold before, some of them did not go so well, but we never talk about those. So that part of Europe, actually the valley of death today for that part of Europe is late-stage capital, believe it or not. It is almost incredible to believe it. But late-stage capital, what we do quite a bit in our practice is we spend a lot of time convincing large American funds to come and take positions in some of our European companies so that we can fuel late-stage development. That's the UK, that's France, Benelux, Switzerland, all of these countries. You really need to have late-stage capital, which is why we launched a late-stage dedicated fund last week. Then you come in a different part of Europe, of which Italy is part of, and the funding gap is still early-stage capital. And for us, that is one of the reasons why the ecosystem in Italy is not as developed in other countries. I don't think that the science is a problem. I don't think the patents are a problem. I don't think that Italy is inferior to anybody also when it comes to patenting. What really is missing is dedicated capital with people that have an experience at investing in these companies that require an acquired taste. You are selling companies that are losing hundreds of millions when you're selling them and you try to sell them for billions. It's not an easy task, and it's not for every investor. So because of that, we have created BioVelocita. We have been working in Italy for more than 20 years. We have invested in several companies. We've been lucky. We've made quite good returns in Italy, but we've not been able to have a consistent deal flow in which to invest. And therefore, Italy remains a small country when it comes to investment size for Sofinnova. In order to start addressing that issue, we have created an accelerator, which actually combines professional management. We are working with people with whom we have already made money twice, and they are actually managing the company and the projects. We bring in bright scientists that are interested to start new companies, and then we can talk a little bit about that if you want later, because I think this is a huge change in Italy since even when I started as a venture capitalist. And then we put money, which is dedicated capital for biotechs. And if you put the three things together, we believe we will generate a number of opportunities for investment going forward. The company is just starting, it's still an experiment. We don't know if it is going to be successful. They've made 3 project investments so far. They're planning to make 6 or 7. They've raised 50 million, and we will see how it goes. That's one thing that we are developing in Italy to increase our deal flow and to generate more opportunities. We are also working on other initiatives that are a little bit more broad-reaching. And for example, it has been announced in Italian newspaper, we are working at creating a fund that will focus on rare genetic disorders, and we're doing that in collaboration with Teleton. And this will be a fund that will only be dedicated to Italian companies. It is not yet launched, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. But just to tell you again that this is another way in which we want to really create a sustainable deal flow for Sofinnova and hopefully start creating an ecosystem that it gets self-sustained going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the thing is that it all sounds as if it's something you have to start yourself from scratch. Are there not already other similar programs or initiatives, or is it something that you are starting and you are the first?
But there are always other initiatives. If you take BioVelocita, I believe is the first Italian accelerator dedicated only to biotech. Okay. The big difference between the way we have built the accelerator compared to an incubator is there are no physical premises. This is all project development and project management that is then conducted in the university by the professors that we decide to finance. And then only tomorrow, if they are successful, will we create startups in which we can invest additional capital. So I think that model exists outside of Italy. I think it exists in Italy potentially in different industries, but to my knowledge, and I'm happy to be contradicting, I think it's the first one in Italy that is fully dedicated to biotech.
Okay. And so yeah, you're talking about reaching that stage tomorrow, where I guess Italy gets to be as big in biotech as other countries, but how long will that take?
Does anybody have a crystal ball? So when I started to work in France, it was 2006. And when I started in venture capital, it was 2001. I think that France was not even a tenth of what it is today. And then through the work of the entrepreneurs, through the work of the venture capitalists, through the work of the government, if you look at today, France today is the second largest biotech market in Europe. And I would never have guessed that France could have done that when I got there. And I spent very little time investing in France. I was investing in the UK, in Switzerland, in the US. Whereas today I spend significant amount of time in France to scout for opportunities of investment. In 10, 15 years, can Italy be like France? Yes, why not? There is nothing missing here that France has. And this is why we are spending considerable amount of time from a strategic perspective ourselves, because we would like to participate in the growth of this market. And it should be at least like France.
Okay. And I want to go back, I guess, to the topic of oncology. Immuno-oncology is becoming like a very big topic. I think a lot of investment in biotech right now is going to that area. So I just want to get your opinion on this area. Do you think all this investment is justified? Is something that will actually generate a return, or do you think it's just that everyone is overexcited?
You did not tell me you were going to ask me that question. So I think that immuno-oncology is a revolution, and as such, it justifies the amount of investment, the amount of excitement. There are incredible programs, and Ricardo was describing some of them that are curative for cancer that we never heard before. We didn't even speak about the immunocheckpoint inhibitors, which are incredible drugs. So we continue to invest in immuno-oncology. We have a broad portfolio of opportunities. We are looking for the next generation, the future of immuno-oncology. Having said that, when you look at some of the trends on the investment trends, you might argue that we are reaching a little bit of a bubble. Acquiring a company for $1 billion per patient treated can be a bit on the high side. But again, you are looking at therapies that are transforming the way we treat cancer or we treat other diseases. So it's a little bit of inflated, but not unjustifiably. And ourselves, for example, we are investing in technology that want to revolutionize the CAR-T environment. And for example, we have a company that wants to take away the manufacturing. It is actually going back to the past. It's simply, what about vaccinating and creating self-manufactured antigen-specific cytotoxic T cells without spending hundreds of thousands of euros producing those T cells? So that, for example, is one investment that we've made. We have incredible results in animals. We will see if those translate to humans, but you can change the T cell compartment of an animal and make it 50% CAR-T, antigen-specific. If that carries forward in man, do we need to produce autologous CAR-T cells? We don't know. We will see. But again, we look for the revolution all the time, and it's not easy to find it. In immuno-oncology today, we spend quite a bit of time.
Yep, yep. Are there any questions for Graziano? Please.
I'm very curious about the bandwagon effect and the fact that there are some sectors of the biotech world where there is a lot of investment, a lot of potential bubbles. And I would like to know a bit more about the forgotten places in the pharmaceutical world. If you see any area like neurodegenerative, for example, where you are waiting for the next disruption in terms of the technological breakthrough, but on the other hand, you still have a lot of gaps in terms, for example, of biomarkers or the regulator helping new therapies going through the development process. Do you see any change coming and there is an opportunity for you as an investor, or is still a wait-and-see mode?
You mentioned neurology, for example. I think if you look at every statistics today, neurology is the second most invested sector, or the third, depending how you count orphan diseases. So we spent quite a bit of time today in neurology. 5 years ago, I would not look at a business plan in neurology. We have made 4 new investments in neurodegeneration. And again, we're going for the disruptive technology that could actually alter the way you treat the patient, not just we're going just for disease modification approaches, not for palliative approaches. I don't know if those are going to work or not, but that is an area that 5 years ago was completely neglected, at least by us, and today instead is quite followed. What it is orphan today are the general diseases. Investing in cardiovascular diseases today is very tough. Investing in diabetes today is very tough because you have to run incredible trials, and so we tend to shy away from the GP diseases, and so they've become orphan. From a venture perspective, cardiovascular is nowhere on the map besides some genetically driven cardiovascular disorders. That's still, we do some of those, but otherwise we will probably not invest in a type 2 diabetes company today, and we've not invested in type 2 diabetes for almost 10 years.
Quick question. I think it's loud enough now.
It's very loud.
So you mentioned that there's a bit of a bubble in immuno-oncology. So it's a double question. Do you think the issues of toxicity, which few have dealt with, MolMed is an exception, do you think the fact that there's a lot of technologies developed without a focus on toxicity could produce some kind of, well, to scare away investors from oncology? And do you think, on the other hand, that this could be an opportunity if solutions start coming up to the toxicity?
Oncology is a place where we've been used forever to deal with toxicity. I mean, still today, the basis of oncology treatment is cytotoxics, which is poison, and you manage the toxicity with poison. So I think that there is quite a bit of emotional reactions to the toxicity of CAR Ts. I don't think that you have such a huge difference compared to other treatments that we have developed in the past. There is a lot of investment going into the management of those toxicities to take away some of the pre-treatments that you have to carry out, to manage the toxicity of the cell itself. Yeah, but again, when you look at some of the cytotoxic drugs, or even of some of the targeted therapies, the clean targeted therapies, when you speak to the oncologists that have developed those drugs, they spend their lives managing those toxicities. So I don't really see a dramatic difference. I think that it is part of oncology treatment, and potentially we'll get into something cleaner when we take away the pre-treatments in some of the cellular approaches, but no, I don't have that feeling, but I might be wrong.
Can you hear me? Thank you. Just two quick questions. One is regarding the bubble. Everybody's mentioning it. Do you think we are coming to a point where we are in a biotech bubble? Because I see a lot of deals in US, India and China are coming up. So the impression is, do you really think this will be keeping up, or do you see we are coming to a tipping point? So that's the first question. The second one is, do you really think that in Italy, this is more provocative, we have the right capabilities, we have the right talents to really develop this biotech arena, comparing with India, China, which are emerging again, and US? Thank you.
Well, the bubble is very difficult to answer. I said that there is a little bit of a bubble in the view of oncology. I don't really know that there is an overarching bubble in biotech. I don't think that when you look even at the P values of the biotech companies, we are looking at crazy numbers that we had seen in the past, or the multiples. So pharmaceutical companies do need to have products, so they will continue buying, they will continue to be M&A. I honestly don't know how to answer that question. There is a little bit of euphoria around some technologies. The markets are also repricing quite significantly this year. I don't know if there will be a crash of a bubble, because I don't know that this is actually a fully formed bubble. There is a bit of euphoria in some part of the business. On Italy, I actually think you have all the ingredients. We have all the ingredients here. If you look at the new generation of scientists, they all want to do some commercial activities, either in collaboration with pharmaceutical or small biotechs, or directly creating their own biotechs. When I went to school here, it was an anathema to even talk about IP, and it was not 50 years ago, by the way. So I discovered the business of science when I went to do research in the States, and that's actually why I became a manager of science rather than a scientist, because I really liked the part of the business. I also discovered I was probably not going to be a genius in science, so I thought I was going to be better off in business. But today, the people that we are speaking to when it comes to company creation, you have the senior professors, but you often have the 35 to 45-year-old researchers that are up and coming, that are at the cusp of becoming the next Mantovani, which is a big difference, because Alberto is a fantastic scientist, but he has never even thought about creating a biotech. Whereas today, Gianni, who will be Alberto tomorrow, is actually thinking about creating the biotech. I think it will happen.
Are there any more questions? Please.
Just a different side of it. Graziano, how you think the fact that in Europe we don't have a stock market impact on the biotechnology development? I mean, now we are competing. US, we have a NASDAQ, but not anymore there. We have Indian, we have a Shanghai, where the stock market is very strong, capable to understand the biotechnology sector. Here in Europe, maybe the Swiss market, maybe, I'm not sure, but I mean, the only example, for instance, is MolMed in Italy, that is a public company. So how this, in your opinion, impact?
Well, I touched on that before because I said that we spend a lot of time discussing with American investors to bring American investors into our European companies. And we continue doing that. So if you look at the evolution of our model, and it's not the Sofinnova model, it's a little bit the venture model, is that quite a large number of European companies today are actually listed on NASDAQ. When you list them in Europe, it is a stepping stone to a NASDAQ listing. So I think that NASDAQ has established itself as, at the moment, the global finance market for biotech. It is the only place where you have a depth of investors and an understanding of the investment that allows you to flourish as a biotech. Having said that, we do bring companies public in Europe, but again, it's typically a stepping stone to something bigger and more structured. We've used it quite well. For example, one of our companies called DBV that is in peanut allergy was listed on a very mediocre 40 million euro listing on Euronext, and then after a couple of years, they went on NASDAQ, and now they are a multi-billion-dollar company. So is Selectis, Argenix in Holland. There is a number of examples. So I think that is more or less the model today. And since I don't work on the macros of the financial markets, what I'm interested in is to finance our companies, to fuel their growth. Honestly, I don't mind that model because our CEOs and our managers are the people who are actually traveling to the States, not me. So it is actually a model that works quite well. In the future, I think what you're going to see is, I don't know if you've seen, but very recently Hong Kong has opened the market to listing to companies that are actually losing money, which is the prelude to technology. So I think we're going to have another big pole that is going to emerge in the Asian region. I don't know what Europe can do, honestly. If you don't merge these markets, they will always be suboptimal. But we've been talking about this for 30 years. As an investor and as a company creator, what we have to do is find solutions for our companies.